All right, so apparently California's legislatures are at it again, trying to attack the classic car hobby here in California and are just wasting time and taxpayers' dollars for a non-existent issue. So apparently back in August, the California Air Resources Board, also known as CARB, sent out a survey to a number of classic car owners. I didn't get one, so I don't know who they sent them out to. But I digress, trying to figure out how people are using their classic cars. Now, odds are a lot of the classic car owners that did get the survey, I'm betting probably just filed that survey in the round bin, because I know a lot of classic car owners don't have the highest regard for the California Air Resources Board or the other folks in Sacramento because of their ineptitude when it comes to how these cars are used and trying to punish us for owning them, thinking that if they got rid of all these cars older than 1978, they would magically solve any and all emissions issues here in the state, which is completely absurd. So what they're trying to do, from what I've been seeing in a few internet articles, is create what they're labeling as zero emission zones. Basically, they're wanting to have areas in the state where you can't drive your classic car, or if you do, you get fined to do so, trying to reduce emissions in certain areas. But the reality is, how many times when you're driving down the road do you see a car that's from before 1980 or even before the year 2000? It's drastically reduced year after year because people don't use them as their daily drivers. They're buying more modern vehicles that have more amenities, get better gas mileage, especially right now when gas is $6+ a gallon. The guys driving these older cars don't drive them every day. And every year, more and more of these classic cars are getting their old engines that do pollute removed and upgraded with modern engines that are more efficient, like your LS engines for your GM products, your Coyote motors for your Ford products, and your Gen 3 Hemis for your Mopar products. Because if you have these newer engines, they're making more power more efficiently, they do get better gas mileage, they're more reliable, and it just makes sense. I mean, I have a constant internal struggle with my Challenger on whether or not I should keep the classic original small block in it, or if I should upgrade it to a modern Hemi, because it'll get similar power that I've got now and be more reliable and get a lot better fuel economy. So I know a lot of people are out there having that debate. And besides that, with these older engines and stuff, a lot of people aren't driving them as much. Of course, a lot of these also don't have things like air conditioning. So in your hot summer months, they also tend to not get driven as much. A lot of people tend to be trailering their cars to events nowadays. And so having the government going through and wasting taxpayers' dollars trying to go and complete these surveys and create these restricted zones for classic cars is just utter nonsense and complete waste of everybody's time and money, because it doesn't address any part of the issue whatsoever. And with how infrequently these cars are being driven these days, they're not polluting. They're not putting out all these crazy emissions that people at Sacramento seem to think they're doing, because they're not on the road. And it's barely on the weekends. Going to a local event tends to be where they go. You don't see them driving around in gridlocked commute traffic every day. It's just dumb. That's just not what we do with these classic cars. I mean, personally, unfortunately, my Challenger hasn't come off that lift since before my daughter was born, 1.5 years ago. That's because of a variety of reasons, but I mean, still, I wouldn't be driving it every day and putting out all these nasty emissions that the government seems to think that I am and all these other classic car owners. So if the government really cares about going through and reducing emissions, they should be looking at all the actual congestion that's going on in these big cities. Try and find other ways to go ahead and reduce those emissions and not try and attack us in the classic car hobby. I mean, we generate a ton of revenue through the different products and stuff that we go and buy. Having the events, at the bigger events, especially here in this state, generate revenue for the local municipalities. You know, it's really unfortunate to see the state heading this direction, which has been pretty much the entire time I've been driving, because this state was really a center for cool car culture and the development of the car culture from the early days all the way through. And to see the government go and try and attack us and constantly restrict our vehicles is just mind-blowing, especially considering how infrequently they get driven. I mean, look around. How often do you see cars like these out on the road? And I know I said that earlier in this video, but it's truly really scarce that you see these cars out on the road. I mean, usually when I'm out and about, I'll see more of these exotic cars out on the road than I do see the classic cars, because I take note when I see the classic cars now more often than when I see the exotic cars. And so having these cars be a focal point is really just an excuse for the government to find ways to put money in their friends' pockets to go and hire them to go and run these surveys and create this nonsense legislation. It has nothing to do with actually doing anything for the environment. And so hopefully these new emission zones don't get created and we can continue enjoying our cars and the hobby that we love so much. But time will tell. It's really unfortunate to see a constant attack from Sacramento on the classic car hobby. I mean, if it's not this type of legislation they're working on, it's another, and it's nonstop. I mean, every year it seems that they're coming up with some new nonsense legislation to go after the classic car hobby and enthusiasts, which is truly unfortunate for the hobby. I know there are other organizations and groups of people out there that are targeted worse than the classic cars are in this state and nationally, but as somebody who's a prominent member of this community, who's been in this community my entire life, to see it being treated like this is truly unfortunate. And I know I will always be a huge automotive enthusiast and advocate for this community, and time will tell what happens. It could definitely, I see in the future, causing me to move out of the state, unfortunately. Whether or not that'll actually happen when that day comes, time will tell. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and continue to enjoy my cars as best as I can here where I was born and raised in the state that I love so much.